Hello everybody, here we are today talking about the news of Dean Evason being hired as a Columbus Blue Jackets head coach and getting into that a bit. So before we get started with that, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So yesterday, an NHL head coaching vacancy was filled as Evason took over the role of head coach for the Blue Jackets, and this is going to be a very tough task to try to get this team turned around, as he is going to be their fourth head coach in the past 5 seasons and their third head coach over the last 3 seasons. This team has finished bottom of the Metro in back-to-back years. This has been one of the worst teams, not only in their division, not only in the conference, but in the entire league. And he is going to have to try to get them going forward at some point. The question is, can he do it? And I think for fans of the team, they're looking at his stint in Minnesota and saying, hopefully this is an indicator of whether or not he's going to be able to get this team going, because Minnesota was able to do relatively well in his time there. They were a side that was able to go to the playoffs relatively regularly, and they weren't always going to be, in fact, they were never really going to be a team that went on a deep run during his time there. However, they were good. And I think at this point, for Columbus fans, they would be ecstatic if they had a 100-point season on the year. And they are probably looking, especially at the fact that younger guys were able to see success at the NHL level in his time there. You're looking at names like Matt Boldy, Kirill Kaprizov, Joel Eriksson, Kevin Fiala, etc. Guys that got NHL opportunities and were able to succeed and thrive. And it's not only now looking at a guy like Fiala, of course he's off in LA and doing relatively well for himself. Kirill Kaprizov is going to be an all-time player for the Wild, I do think, and that is good. But I also want to throw in there, some of these players were not bad players before he took over, and then also with Kaprizov, he was playing professionally overseas beforehand, so we can't just say that this is going to be a one-to-one transition and everything is going to work seamlessly. And in the case with the Blue Jackets, they are a team that is going to have a lot of youth they need to develop, as they are the 5th youngest team going into the season by average NHL age. So that is going to be hard to deal with. You have a lot of young, enticing prospects here, especially the forward group. You have a lot of young Russian players that could, gel well together, knowing that they are potentially going to be the reason why this franchise gets turned around, as well as the fact that they share, cultural ties and all of that. But it's going to be difficult trying to get them on the right track. On top of that, too, I do think with all of the names and the flash and the pizzazz and saying, oh, what if these young players turn into these star guys for the team, you still are going to realistically need veteran guys to step up for them. I'm looking primarily at some names like Johnny Gaudreau. Johnny is a player you'd like to see have just a breakout year and be who he was in Calgary at points. A player that could score 40 goals in a year. That could be a name you keep up with every single night. And I know at points he's been really slow or had some really bad stretches in his time with Columbus, as the team necessarily hasn't always been that great in his run with the team. But you've got to get things figured out. You've got Sean Monahan there with him and his ties back to Calgary. Maybe they could go out there and play minutes together and succeed and be part of a line that looks really fun. And I think one thing Evason's probably really excited about is the fact that he has a top-pairing defenseman, number 1 defenseman for this group undisputedly, in Zach Werenski. Werenski had 57 points in 70 games played, and if he's healthy, I think could have a really good year, can play a lot of minutes for the team, and be the offensive defenseman they need him to be, and be one of those veteran players to help these young guys take the next step. Still, while we were trying to highlight some of the good, there is a lot of bad. This wasn't a team that could particularly score a lot of goals. They gave up a lot of goals. They were getting outchanced pretty consistently at 5-on-5, especially giving up a lot of shots. They were not a team that was successful on penalties, PK. They weren't successful on the power play. Just special teams was not something that was especially working for them. They were making their goalies' lives much harder than it needed to be, and that is a true problem for this side that is going to have to, again, improve in a lot of aspects. Now, I do think there are some things that are underrated. This is a team that, while being young especially, could probably play a factor in this, wants to get up the ice. They're just not particularly always the best at it. I think they're above league average in shots off the rush per 60 this season. However, they struggle with things like getting the puck out of their end of the ice, so zone exits, and then getting the puck into their opponent's end of the ice, zone entries. All of these things are just something you have to learn over time, especially as you get a feel for the game, the speed. But it is kind of promising to see a team that could be very exciting in the future, that could maybe score a lot of goals, that wants to play productive in eventful hockey. Whether or not that translates over this season, we will see. And I know I keep bouncing around between the positives and the negatives, but really what I'm trying to get at here with all of this news of this hire is to say probably, pump the brakes a little bit on the expectations. Evason is not going to turn around this team and make them a 100-point team within a year or two. And I think what I'm trying to see especially here is the player development, especially for the younger players, and seeing what this group looks like within 2 years. A lot of people are talking about online how Evason is going to make this a team that is accountable. They're going to put in a healthy effort and just be a side that is going to make it hard to play against them for a full 60 minutes. For me, it's about making this group better defensively, even if they're not studs, just making it harder for teams to get a lot of chances, especially high quality chances, and to try to get through whatever they're going to be going through here. As again, new head coach, players that want out, all of these things could be problematic, but maybe Evason can turn the culture around a little bit and get Columbus back on track. Jarmo kicked the line and had players that wanted to come there, in part to Columbus being a relatively good team, and he could give them a decent amount of money. They could live in an area where maybe taxes weren't going to be as high. So if Evason is able to get these players on a roll and the team that perform better, maybe guys are going to be more inclined to stay there, but also to come there. So we will see. What are your thoughts on the Dean Evason hire? Do you think this is going to be something where Columbus is not a guarantee to finish last in the Metro this year? Do you think they finish 7th or 6th or even better? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. And also please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And Eagle of Hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.